Hey, I know you don't smoke weed. I know this. But I'm gonna get you high today. Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job,
Yes!
and you ain't got shit to do.
And we're back. It's your boy Ivy Joe, fresh off the poach. It's been a extended vacation or a lapse since volume 1 of Fresh Off the Porch. Today brought to you by JMJ12 cigars. Went with the Maduro today.
Yes!
I will have to say it did get a brother right. It's smooth, strong, and when you combine that with a couple shots of Maker's Mark,
Yes!
the boy was right today on Football Sunday. I have to admit, man, I'm pretty happy about what I've heard thus far, or shall I say what I've seen thus far today with the Saints. We'll get into that a little bit later in the episode. Again, in Fresh Out the Porch, we pretty much take care of all entertainment aspects of our life. Primarily looking at films, TV, and sporting events. This week on the show, what I plan to take a further dive, or at least look over, particularly in the TV realm, there's a few shows that are near and dear to my heart. We're going to take a dive into Snowfall Season 3. If you're not aware of the show, it's a FX show. Year 3, created by the great late John Singleton. Shout out to all the boys out there throwing yos. We're going to take a look at that, as well as Wu-Tang Hulu show, American Saga. It's pretty new, still in season 1. They've dropped, I think, 5 episodes at this point, at this particular time. And then we'll wrap things up by taking a look at one of my shows that is new, fairly new to me, as far as like, I believe I watched it, probably got up on it back in 2015 when it originally dropped on Netflix. Top Boy. The original 2 series is currently titled Top Boy Summer House, and the current reiteration of it is Top Boy. From there, we'll take a look at week 4 of the college football schedule. I'll take a look at the top, or at least in my opinion, the top 5 or 6 games, and then recap my Tigers. With that said, as I said before, man, Snowfall Season 3, created by Dave Andrew, John Singleton, R.I.P., and Eric, I believe, Ando, starring Damson Idris, plays Franklin Saint in the role. And if you know nothing about it, it's pretty much a reiteration or a slight documentary based on what I would consider to be Freeway Ricky Ross. Another big character in the series is called Teddy, CIA agent, played by Carter Hudson. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I guess my favorite new character in season 3 would have to be Man Boy. Played by I got the boy's name somewhere. But anyway, Man Boy, I would say out of the new characters that came this year is probably my favorite new rendition of brought to the forefront. With that said, I have to admit I enjoyed the season. Season 3 was pretty good. I like the aspects that Gustavo, played by Sergio, got back into the game, so to speak. I even like the dynamic that his love Lucia, played originally by Emily Rios. It's kind of a point of contention for him, and he's constantly looking for her, so to speak. And it resonates with me in the sense that he's doing all this essentially for his family, but as far as his bringing back into the fold, working with Teddy, so to speak, not full frontally trying to get back or trying to find Lucia, but you could tell deep down, he's looking forward or hoping to run into her eventually. I think one of the things that caught my attention about it, particularly this last iteration, was essentially you saw the introduction of the tunnels to the border, particularly in this particular case, Gustavo's. As the season is ending, I believe that's like episode 10. And spoiler alerts, if you haven't watched it, you go ahead and fast forward because I'm getting into it. But he, in this story, he started the tunneling from Tijuana on the Mexico side from a home that he bought. And I believe his brother and sister-in-law and their kids are going to stay in the home. But essentially, they're going to have a tunnel that start on their side and walk, and they'll be able to essentially crawl to the other side with as much dope as they can get. I thought that was pretty dope. Another big character in the series since season one is a character by the name of Avi, played by Alon Abaton. He's in a lot of different I guess shows and movies, and he typically plays a Middle Easterner. In this one, he's Israeli gun runner that has ties to the CIA. The thing I like the most about it, particularly in this episode, or I should say this season, is showing the growth in Franklin. He's literally running his operation as a Fortune 500. I like the aspect of him taking a bigger picture stance, and man, it's a dope show. If you haven't been on it thus far, I recommend starting at season 1 and binge it until you get to the end of season 3. Dislikes, I can honestly say I didn't like Melody's character arc. I think I would have liked her to see her not become, a straight off junkie for all intents and purposes. In this in this season as it ends, she is a hard off junkie, and that I would have preferred to see her character arc go off to college, so to speak. Have that experience with that drug, realize how bad it is, how strong it is, how powerful it is, and be that kind of breath of fresh air for Franklin as he moves along. Particularly, I think I would have liked to see her become like, some high power or a very strategic and smart lawyer, because he's definitely going to need it. Where the I guess the role of the characters of Franklin and Freeway Ricky Ross kind of separates is towards the end of this one, and I would admit that I do like that Franklin is playing a more smart, strategic role and essentially put all his cards on the table as far as like letting Teddy finally know that he knows the deal. The gig is up, and it's time for them to, I guess, acquiesce, so to speak, and actually move forward as this is truly a partnership, and that both of them have, pretty much as much as they can, that cards on the table. I did like that from that perspective because it at least gives them an opportunity to have that happy ending, so to speak, that we all know is not, going to happen. But I like that aspect of it. But I will have to say, man, again, shout out to John Singleton again, RIP, rest in power, my brother. I wonder how much longer this series is going to be able to last, because he was, obviously the driving force behind the series, and he had a lot of that grit because he's from that particular part of town, as well as, he grew up in that era. He came of age in that era, and so he had a unique perspective and in game, so to speak, that he wanted to get across in the film. And I think that now that he's gone, I fear that they're going to miss that. And again, I look forward to seeing where season 4 is going to take us. They already picked up for season 4. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me if they don't get past season 5, because I can see in my eyes, I see them coming back. Because it's such a popular show, I can see them coming back and having pretty good numbers the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then being re-up for season 5 based on those 2 or 3 episodes, and then have the writing fall off, and then it will be kind of a wait and see on season 5. With that said, again, man, I love the show. Again, Man Boy coming on. I like the transition from trying to be, at least from Franklin's perspective, being essentially the owners of, be vertical as far as from dope to crack rock to street hustler peddlers, to seeing that, to minimize their risks, it would be good to take on guys like Man Boy who can take that risk on their own, and their only connection to it is at a high level as far as giving them the dope, and then they do what they want with it. I do find it interesting that essentially what Franklin is going to be is become a snitch. Granted, if you know anything about majority of the guys in the past that, whether it was Whitey Bulger or mafia guys back in the day, that's pretty much what they was doing. Whenever someone got close or was making things interesting, so to speak, competitiveness got in their way, they would do this and kind of bird dog them for the people. And essentially that's what Franklin is going to be doing moving forward. So that's interesting. I found the part where he took out Melody's father. That was inevitable. Exactly what he said as far as like why he had to do it, or at least the implied reasons why he had to do it, as far as he wasn't going to quit.
Yes!
He wasn't going to quit. He was going to come back and he was going to make shit tough on him, and it was the easy way to get out of it. I find it interesting that his best friends, though, as far as like the Sarge, his best friends will be working with Franklin, and Franklin will be essentially paying him off. Interesting. So the dynamic of the show is where it is right now is in a great perspective, great place. There's a lot of places that they can go with this, and if the writing and the cast is still strong, it can run for a while. But with John Singleton being gone now, man, that makes me feel like it may take a step back, and we may be looking at the last few episodes of Snowfall moving forward. With that said, over the last few weeks, couple months, should I say, there's been some scullabug around. I would say consider the industry as far as like Hollywood and film, particularly when it becomes with regards to black actors, and in this case, and I think it's apropos in the sense that one of the next shows that I will be discussing is Top Boy, is a London-based crime drama. There was some angst on some folks' parts about Hollywood hiring more London-based actors to play American parts. And because of the whole Top Boy type drama, should I say, I guess there's a part of me that sees where people are coming from as far as like feeling like that's taking parts from American actors. Now, my when it's all said and done, my opinion on the matter is hire the best talent that you can get. But I can see the angst and the issues with people that feel like, there's not that many jobs in Hollywood for black actors, period. And when you do start to see a proliferation of blacks being hired from overseas for parts, American parts, I can see how that would have some, for all intents and purposes, with the panties in a bunch. Because you have to believe that there are some guys, actors, young actors that can play these parts. Specifically when it comes to the new iteration of Top Boy. The young guy in that show, I can see Damson playing that role. Like, I see him playing that role. And so in that instance, there's opportunities for them over there. Some of my favorite binge-worthy shows are Britain or English-based shows like Sherlock Holmes, again Top Boy, Luther, as well as that's one more. It's a new show. I forget her name, but it's the Asian actor that was in Grey's Anatomy. She has an interesting show going on right now, and so I say all that to say that I on one hand I see the issue there. I can see your angst, but it's just one of those things where I do also feel like you should go with the best talent and let it be where it be at that point. With that said, next up on the docket tonight, fresh off the porch again, you can reach me at I am Ivy Joe, and that's Joe Jeaux on all social media platforms, as well as you can follow me for all fresh out the porch, should I say, contacts on Joe Cool Media, and that's Joe Jeaux Cool KEWL Media on Twitter and IG. Next up, though, one of my favorite new shows that just popped off on Hulu, Wu-Tang American Saga. It's a fictional account of the origins of the Wu-Tang Clan. The series is based on RZA's two books, and it's written by RZA as well as Alex Tass, who is of Watchmen fame. At this particular point, I think they're in episode 5 of season 1. Method Man is also executive producer, and there's a few other guys that creative producers. Jizza, the estate of ODB, Inspector Deck, Ghostface Killer, and Master Killer. I'm sorry. If if you know anything about the recent goings on of the Wu-Tang Clan as far as the documentary on Showtime, you can see that there was some angst there still with a lot of the members. And you can also see some guys being more conciliatory. Initially, I thought it was just, these boys still upset with how things went down, which could be the case. Definitely could be the case. But as this rolled out, I realized that could have been an onus as well. One of the main characters in this series is, as you may know, Raekwon, the chef. Played by Shamik Moore, Ray of Spider-Man Elk. He also was in another show that Nas was executive producer on. What was it? But I would say this: the boy is playing a hell of a role playing Raekwon. I see him in that, and I think the biggest thing that I didn't realize as far as the show is concerned, I didn't realize them niggas was actually trying to kill each other, man. Them niggas was trying to do each other, like for real. Like Raekwon and the boy Power, who he was his young boy or whatnot. They literally shot up Ghostface home with his people in the house, and the dynamic with Ghostface family, he has two special needs brothers that he's there for. That's an interesting background to the story. All the entanglements with the Diggs household, as far as Divine, RZA, their sister and younger brother and mother. How Divine is essentially paying for, the schooling and the home, making sure the lights stay on, food's on the table. He's literally the man of the house. Typical, African American stories growing up, particularly in that time frame in the 80s and the 90s, as well as RZA fighting the call of the street, really wanted to do music full time from the beginning, but getting pulled there from Divine and Dennis, who is a Ghostface killer. And it's a great show, man. At this point, I'm thoroughly impressed with what I see. I think they drop every Wednesday, so I would recommend checking that out. With that said, RZA is played by Ashton Saunders. He actually was in the NWA biopic. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he played Snoop Dogg. Jizza is played by Jonell Young. ODB is played by DJ Adams. I'm sorry. He is actually playing the shit out of that role. That nigga acts just like what I would imagine ODB would act as a young man. He's playing the hell out of that role. Haven't seen much Joey Badass, but he plays Inspector Deck in this. Inspector Deck on here. Again, Shamik Moore. Sadiq Sanderson is playing Ghostface, Dennis. Method Man is played by Davies. He's doing a pretty good job. That was a pretty good casting of Davies. Haven't seen anything on Capadonna just yet, but they have him being played by Caleb Castilla. Divine's played by Julio Martinez. Powered by Marcus Callender, and Mom's RZA and Divine and Mom is played by Erica Alexander of Living Single fame. Again, interesting biopic. It's interesting to see the dynamic of how Power and Divine actually kind of fell out, because at one point they were cool, they were dogs, which probably is why eventually they did get back into doing business together. And it's kind of dope to see how or at least their interpretation of how things went down. But with that said, at this point, 5 episodes in, I recommend checking it out. Checking out the documentary, the 4-part documentary on Showtime. You can kind of see what I'm talking about, because like Raekwon was really, really, you could tell he had some angst with him, and that's probably his demeanor as is. He reminds me of one of my chapter brothers, Minor. For all those out there that knows Minor Rogers, Raekwon always remind me of him, like attitude and everything, even how they kind of like move. And it's just interesting to see, that and how it went down, at least from his perspective, because guys always take creative license when they're making their biopics. Again, check that out on Hulu. Last on the deck as far as entertainment this week, I'm gonna talk about Top Boy. Top Boy is a reiteration of Top Boy Summer House. I don't know if you may not recall, but a few years back, Drake kind of mentioned something in a award show. I forget which award show, but he mentioned that he was going to be bringing back Top Boy. And essentially, Top Boy was originally created back in 2011 on Channel 4 in London, or should I say in England. It was canceled after season 2. The original 2 seasons were essentially 4 episodes. All 4 episodes were all over an hour long. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're roughly an hour and a half a piece. And going into 2013, it was canceled abruptly. Apparently, they did have fairly good reviews, but I guess not good enough. With that said, it took about 6 years or so. 5 years, definitely, because I believe they started filming back in 2018, July 2018. And with the help of Drake and Spring Hill Entertainment, which is Maverick Carter's entertainment company, as well as the original creator, Ronan Bennett, and the original team, they brought the series back. And I have to be honest, I'm impressed.
Yes!
It's a good series. So at the end of the last series, season of this, season 2, Sully, the main character Sully, played by Kane, what's your boy's name? Kane Robinson, and Deshaun, played by Ashley Walter, were at different ends of the spectrum. One was going to jail, the other one was going to hiding off in Jamaica, and that's pretty much where the series picked up at. Deshaun was in Jamaica, kind of activating, moving around under the light. Not really being known, and as things would happen, got into it with some hoodlums that, in order for him to get out of it without putting his family at rest, went and had a proposition for the local Shatta. In this case, his name was Sugar. Long story short, he was able to get some bricks, had to go back to London, and abruptly was told that now he has to pay for the first brick, or at least 10 grand. Didn't have it. Around the same time, Sully was in the pen in his last week in jail, and he was being accosted by another hoodlum by the name of Modi, played by Rapper Dave. Long story short, Sully pulls a Sully move and burns your man face up, Moody, on his day out, the day before he gets out. But with the code, he didn't rat, so he was able to get out. long story short, things didn't work out exactly the way that Sully wanted it to, because Deshaun, that was the first guy Deshaun went to for money to try to get the 10 grand. He backed out of it, didn't want to do it because he didn't trust him. For all intents and purposes, Sully is Avon Barksdale and Deshaun is Stinger Bell. Yes. Deshaun is the Stinger Bell of the operation. And, for all intents and purposes, Top Boy is essentially what I would consider to be their version of The Wire. Good show. I like this iteration when they came back. They had some new boys, young blood, as everyone kind of knows that if you know anything about that life, it's a young man's game, and you only got so much time before someone comes for your throne. And in this instant, it was a young boy by the name of Jamie, played by Michael Ward. Boy did a pretty good job on it on the road. He played the role, pretty stand up. I look forward to see where it goes from here. They were the wild boys. They were doing the stabbing, the killing, and getting at Deshaun and making life tough. Found a new connect, played by Lisa Don. Her name was Lizzie. But it's a great show, man. I like seeing those different aspects of other lives, as far as, that life, but in a different place. And, it just gives you, even though it's a 30,000 feet view, but it kind of gives you how things are viewed in different other places, in different cities, and in this case, in another country. Again, Deshaun, played by Ashley Walter, Sully by Kane Robertson, Jamie, who's the new kid on the block, played by Michael Ward. Probably my favorite character in this iteration is a character by the name of Jax. So it's a woman, it's a girl. She's of the LGBT community, and she's a thorough character, played by Jasmine Jobson. Deshaun's love interest in this particular iteration of the show is played by the rapper Little Sims. Good show. I'm not going to give too much away on this one, but season 4 should be pretty dope. I like to see where it's going to go from there. Particularly the whole dynamic with Jamie and Deshaun and Sully, how that dynamic's gonna work. Also the dynamic between Jax and Sully, if and when that secret actually come out. It's a secret that Deshaun knows, and I don't believe he actually told Sully. And one of the reasons why Sully was so apprehensive of getting back into business with Deshaun was because it was things he was holding away from. He was holding from him. He wasn't telling him everything, and that was kind of the crux of them getting back together, is that he wasn't going to do that any longer. And so it's already, that dynamic already is set up as far as you're doing this shit again. And which is basically the whole dynamic from The Wire, as far as Stinger Bell and Avon. You know what I'm saying? Like, you think you're too smart, and Deshaun, and even to a certain degree Jamie, they wanted to run the business like a business, and kind of, again, piggybacking to the show earlier I mentioned, as far as like Snowfall. Franklin as well was looking at it from like a business, a Fortune 500 company, how to maximize profit and minimize risk. And I like to see that type of talk when I see these type of characters. And it's one of those things that if I were ever into a similar situation, as far as being able to put together a show, I would like to have that dynamic too. With that said, moving forward, kind of on the docket, as far as moving forward in the future, I would definitely be following up on the latest episodes of the Wu-Tang Saga. Also, there's a great show on Epics that I'm looking forward to catching up on. Get Shorty. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Season 1, absolutely dope. I loved it from the start to the finish, and it's a lot of the same characteristics or foundations as the movie Get Shorty, but then they kind of peel off from that narrative and have like its own little dynamic, and it was pretty dope. And then I love how it ended. The whole show, because I only seen season 1, and apparently they just started season 3, so I'll be catching up on season 2 over the coming week or two, and I'll look over that. I'll bring that to you as well. But the last 5 minutes of the season 1 was pretty fucking epic, as well as Pennyworth. And there's a new show, I forget the name, I think it's King of Harlem, some to that effect, all on Epic. I'll be taking a look at all those moving forward, and look forward to bringing you my thoughts. With that said, week 4 of the college football season is in the books. It was a crazy kind of week, and I like to start. There's a few games that I want to touch on pretty off top. That's pretty. I thought were like the bigger games of the week. First thing was Friday night, the SC Utah game. There was a lot of hype and hubbub about Utah and them possibly an outside chance of getting into the tournament. And going into the game Friday night, they were a 4-point favorite. It was a 4-point favorite, but the chances of winning, at least by the football index, was under 40%. And lo and behold, SC pulled it out. 30-23 victory. What I will say is, I don't understand all the hype that comes from the Utah Utes. I never really got it. I thought that for all intents and purposes, what they thought Utah was going to do is beat people up, play close games and beat people up. And that's essentially what they did in the game. They held the ball for 38 minutes, had over 450 yards of total offense, 27 first downs, and only 1 turnover. But USC never seemed to be in doubt. I mean, SC, again, they only held the ball 22 minutes. They had a backup to the backup playing the game, 21-30, 351 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. I don't foresee that continuing. It's the reason why you're not playing. If you were that good, you would have been playing, but he's not going to be that good moving forward. It's just one of those games where, and they lost a turnover battle. So they lost time of possession, they lost total yards, and lost a turnover battle, and still won the game. It just, to me, just means Utah just don't have the dogs to run with these type of teams. And SC ain't even really nothing special. They did, if you went for the over, they did cover. And I'll just be honest with you, man. I don't have really any faith in anyone coming out the Pac-12. I think right now the cream of the crop is in the North. It's either University of Washington or Oregon, and I don't think either one of them are real truly contenders. And it's just another down year for the Pac-12. Moving on to the game of the week. And it actually, for all intents and purposes, it lived up to the hype. The Georgia-Notre Dame game. Georgia was favored by over 14 points, and they did not cover. They pulled out the victory 23-17. They were favored, or the football index had them at a 67% chance of winning, and they pulled it out. It was a lot closer than the experts would have thought. Notre Dame held the ball 25 minutes to Georgia's 35. Offenses really didn't show up in this one. I mean, Ian Book actually had a decent line. Of course, he was responsible for 2 turnovers. He went 29-47 for 275, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. But that was the problem. They couldn't run the ball. They had 275 yards passing, but only 46 yards rushing. In fact, Ian Book led the Irish in rushing. That was the issue. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't keep the ball. And essentially, Georgia kept the ball from them by running. And, they didn't even really have a great day of running, but they were just beating them up just enough with 18 first downs compared to 14 for Notre Dame. 4 of 11 on third down as opposed to 4 of 13. And then Notre Dame was 1 of 3 on fourth on the fourth down play, and Georgia didn't go for it on fourth down. Jake Fromm went for 20 of 26, 187, and 1 tub. Deontay Swift had a decent game, 18 for 94 yards and a touchdown. Had a big game, though. He caught a couple passes, made some stuff go on. I mean, Georgia does have a talented team, one of the more talented teams out there. I just, and the scullabug out there that I'm hearing more and more on radio is they don't think that from an X and O's perspective that Smart and them boys have the wherewithal to win a championship. They don't think that they're championship level coaching. And if I'm being honest with you, I can see the argument there. Whenever it's a team of similar talent, 1 through 40, because I don't care what anyone says, 1 through 40, Oklahoma and Texas, they're not the same talent as, the Georgias, the Clemsons, and the Ohio States of the world. They're not. I don't even think they match up well with us. And when I say us, I'm talking about LSU. So I guess moving forward at this point, Georgia still has a few big games in front of them. Naturally the Florida game. They also play Auburn, who's also undefeated at this point, and of course finish the year off with Alabama. Well, sorry, talking about Georgia. They have both Florida and Auburn, and then whoever they get in the championship game, which is going to be either LSU or Alabama at this point, in my opinion. With that said, a good friend of mine is very low down, should I say, on Jake Fromm. He feels like he throws a lot of 50-50 balls and his guys save him. And that's why in the bigger games when the DBs are better, they don't get those 50-50 balls as much as they do when they're playing against teams with not as much talent, like a Notre Dame. I can see the argument there. I mean, it's one of those things where I wouldn't argue against them, but, it's working for them. And then, if you're a coach, what you're going to do? You're going to tell your guys not to do it, not to believe in your guys. But, another great game. It's a good game to have it under the belt moving forward. And it's just setting up Georgia and the Florida game. Georgia-Florida, whenever that happens. Hopefully we take them down before they get there, but that should be a big game. The letdown game of the weekend is University of Michigan versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin was favored by 3.5 and ended up whooping their shit out of the motherfuckers. The over and under was 45. which they got, and I guess for all intents and purposes, University of Wisconsin covered. I think the most impressive thing was essentially Wisconsin kept the ball away from them. They had a hell of a day on the ground. They had 359 yards rushing. Your boy Jonathan Taylor went for 203 yards on 23 carries, 2 tubs. Wisconsin, I feel like when it's all said and done, what's going to hold Wisconsin back is going to be the quarterback. I mean, he had a decent game. I think he went 13 for 16 for 128 yards. I feel like they're going to need more out of him eventually. They're not going to be able to just rely on Taylor, bring him to the championship. And on the other side, Michigan, I don't know what to think about them. I mean, they look horrendous, and they're paying their head coach, if not the highest paid head coach, he's right there. I believe he's making, reportedly over $9 million a year. Crazy. And to have these type of performances, I mean, they totally laid an egg. They held the ball for 19 minutes. They only had the ball 19 minutes. No wonder they couldn't generate any real offense because they couldn't keep the ball. I mean, they rushed for 40 yards. Pathetic. They turned the ball over 4 times. That's been a Achilles heel all year. And to be quite frank, Shea Patterson had this problem last year. Shea Patterson been putting the ball on the ground a lot. So I don't see that improving. I was on the bandwagon at the beginning of the year. I was thinking that this would probably be their year just because I was thinking Ohio State was going to take a step back. Obviously, I was wrong. Harbaugh's, on one hand, I would say Harbaugh's on the hot seat, but on the other hand, it's like, who are they going to get better than him? I mean, it's not like they're not winning games. I see them winning at least 9 games. I mean, who else are they going to lose to? Ohio State? Who else? Maybe Penn State? But Penn State's not really impressing me none this year. So, I mean, hell, these boys went 0 for 11 on 3rd down. They can't get not one first down, man. I had a lot more expectation, high hopes for the Harbaugh era. And again, they're still winning games. And I guess it's, kind of akin to what LSU's been going through over the last few years. But, they brought in, a new guy from Alabama who's supposed to open things up for Shea Patterson. And I want to thank God for saving LSU from that nightmare because he is a total absolute bust.
Yes!
And, he saved himself from that. You know what I'm saying? And, I'm going to go ahead and give Wisconsin, their roses while they're alive and they can enjoy it because they're undefeated. But I don't foresee them really being a contender. They're going to lose, whether it's a championship game or next week with Iowa. I believe they play Iowa in the coming weeks. I see them losing. They're going to lose the game because, again, I'm not sold on that freshman quarterback. I know he's all world. He was like a top 10 quarterback, probably talent-wise, the best quarterback they've had in a while, if not forever. But I feel like eventually it's inevitable that his inexperience is going to rear his ugly head. And the lack of talent on the outside is going to show up. And, they may have more talent than I'm giving them credit for, but it's Wisconsin. Who really want to go play football at Wisconsin as a wide receiver? You're a running back, I get it. Jonathan Taylor, the Taylor boy, he's legit. But I don't foresee that being a win. But, they win a lot of games, and that's what they are ultimately there to do. And in that instance, moving on. With that said, the top game in the Pac-12 this weekend, at least coming into the game, was the Oregon Sanford game, and Oregon was favored by 10 and won by I guess a little 15 points. They were definitely under, so you took the over, you ate it, and for all intents and purposes, man, University of Oregon just outclassed them. I mean, it's one of those things where they just don't match up well with true spread teams that have the athletes and the abilities to attack you through the spread. They don't match up well against those guys. They don't have the dogs on defense, and they want to slow the game down, which they actually did a fairly good job of. The game was still a ball game heading into the fourth quarter. So, I mean, they did pretty much what they wanted to do, but they just didn't get enough when it counted. Going 5 of 16 didn't hurt, and then the couple times they went for it on fourth down, you know what I'm saying, they didn't get it. So, you know, it's another situation where, again, I feel like Oregon and Washington may be the class, the Pac-12. Cal right now is doing pretty good, but Cal's gonna pull a Cal. They're gonna, like, for instance, I totally foresee them losing to Stanford, and they always give one away that they shouldn't. But between them and Washington, I feel like they're gonna be the class, and I feel like that moving forward. Next up, we got the Auburn A&M game. I have to be totally honest with you. A&M let me down this game. I looking at the stats, Auburn didn't do nothing. They didn't get 300 yards of offense. They didn't win the time of possession battle, and that was what they wanted to do. But what they did beat them at was a turnover game. And for all intents and purposes, that was the game. The fumble probably cost them the game because they lost this game 28-20. It wasn't that close going into the fourth quarter. They had a double-digit lead most of the second half. But Auburn on offense never really did much. I mean, they had some trickery plays. But I will say this. The A&M, what I would say about A&M and Florida are two teams in the SEC that both won probably about 2 games more than they should have last year. Like, for instance, I feel like they're probably a better team than they were last year, but I don't see them winning 10 games this year. Same with Florida. I don't see Florida winning 10 games this year. For me, I feel like Florida is going to lose, and I believe they play Auburn. I think they're going to lose all 3 of those games. They're going to lose Auburn, they're going to lose Georgia, and they're going to lose LSU. That's 3 right there. And it ain't that. And it's not like I said, they're not a better team than they were last year. They just won more games. They just won more games than they should have. And A&M is right along in that line. I feel like Kelly Mond is definitely taking a step back. He has some good numbers, though. 31 to 49, 335, 2 tubs. He has a damn good wide receiver core. And I have to be honest with you. I feel like Kelly Mond is the end, and it's the gift that he's the gift and the curse. He gives it and takes it away. Going back to the Clemson game, I saw multiple times where he just overthrew the guys. The guys were running free. He just overthrew them. It was like he wasn't stepping into it. And with that said, he kind of did the same thing in this game. They let the game get away from him. And before you know it, Auburn was up, I believe, 16 points. And while they had an opportunity towards the end to win the game, I mean, Auburn did enough to beat them. Auburn essentially didn't lose the game, is what I would say. Bo Nix, they're going to have to get more out of him. 12 of 20 for 100 yards isn't going to do it. Not going to do it. You're not going to win a lot of big games on that. I see them losing 3-4 games just on GP because of him. Because of I don't see any downfield throws that I feel like he's manipulating the defense at all. Now, granted, he's a freshman, true freshman, so he's doing a lot, and you're asking a lot. I guess am asking a lot out of him, but I feel as the year goes on, the book's going to get out on what Auburn wants to do, how they can attack you, and it's going to come increasingly more difficult for them to hide him. And I feel like that's essentially what they're doing right now. They're hiding him. And the last game of the week that I wanted to cover, and this was kind of near and dear to my heart only because there's a few Louisiana boys on a Colorado team. Colorado versus Arizona State. Arizona State was favored by 7.5. And they lost the game. Colorado took that out, 34-31. They had less than a 30% chance going into the game of winning. I brought this up because I actually like Arizona State. Even though they lost this game, I still feel like it's between them and SC to win the Pac-12 South. I'm pulling for the boy, Herm Edwards. He's one of my favorite characters in football. And when he got the job, there was a lot of naysayers about he hadn't coached in college in, I want to say, over 30 years. And what could he bring to the table? And, for all intents and purposes, they've been competitive throughout. With that said, Colorado kind of took the ball away from him, but they also outgained him. So in this instance, Colorado just played a better game. Turnover battle was even. Time possession was roughly even, 32-28. 453 total yards for Arizona State. 475 for Colorado. It just came down to making plays and not making plays. And when it all said and done, Colorado made enough plays to get a win. It kind of sucked that one of them had to lose, but it was I actually got a chance to watch the majority of this game. It was a good game. Damn good game. Probably wasn't the game of the night, or I should have said the most entertaining game of the night. The most entertaining game of the night was definitely UCLA versus Washington State, where Washington State quarterback threw for 9 touchdowns and lost the game. How you like them apples? But it was an entertaining game. I still feel like Arizona State is the outside chance of winning the Pac-12 South. I like them against just about everybody else they play. I like them against just about everyone else they play, even USC, because for some reason they have USC number, and they can even when USC is good, they beat them. But shout out to the Buffaloes out there doing things, bouncing back from their I think they lost the last game they played, and got a chance to bounce back. That was dope. And I'm going to end the night talking about my Tigers. So for all intents and purposes, man, the Tigers got a goddamn offense now. Finally got one. It's another one of those games where we put up 66 points, almost 600 yards of offense, 599 to be specific. And we actually got a little running game this time. We got over 180 yards of rushing, led by Clyde Edwards, who went for 106, a touchdown on 14 carries. But the stat line of the evening was Chase Jamal Chase, 10 receptions, 229 yards, 4 tubs. If I'm not mistaken, that's the most touchdowns in the game for a Tiger since Odell. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the single best game for a wide receiver in LSU history. I guess my biggest concern moving forward is the defense. I'm underwhelmed by the defense at this point. At this particular time in the season, I truly feel like this is the worst LSU defense that I've seen in a while. Now, granted, over the last 2 weeks, we haven't been playing with, all our starters. We have a few guys down. Lawrence was down this game. Glenn Logan was down in this game. Chase A&M was down in this game. And on top of that, on the back end, we lost a safety, Todd Harris, for the year. So I guess in certain respects, you could take that put that feather in your hand and be like, well, we did this with backups, a lot of backups, which I will, I take that. But we need more push out of our front four. While I don't think our back seven is as good as I might have thought they were coming into the year, individually, and that's saying a lot when you got on one side a cornerback that's rated as top 10 prospect coming into the year for seniors or draft eligible players, and on the other side we had a number 1 cornerback coming in on the year, and then we have the top safety in the country on the back end of it. And I as far as our linebackers are concerned, I take our linebackers against anyone. But at this point, we need more push out of our front four, and we're not getting enough. Even when Lawrence and Logan was in the game against Texas, it still wasn't enough. And we need to improve on tackling. But Joey Football, man, he's a legit Heisman candidate. I love the way the season sets up for us. We have, again, 3 full-game stretches going into an off week. I think this is coming at a great time. We got a couple guys that are still banged up, namely Chase A&M, Lawrence, and Logan. Should be able to get those boys back in another 2 weeks. I imagine most of them probably won't play against Utah State when they come back in 2 weeks. And the first game match in the SC will be against Florida when they come to town. And that's the next big game. We should be going in there. It should be a top 10 matchup. Florida, LSU. Now, again, I still wholeheartedly feel like we're better than those boys, and we're gonna take them down. And I feel like it could get ugly, because they're dealing with a backup quarterback, and he's a big boy. So if it's a close game, he could T-bow us. But if we come in there and play our game, B+, we should beat them. Because I don't see him having an A game in him. I don't see that boy having an A game in. Right now they're just trying to tread waters with I think his name was Taff. But good week, man. I just was disappointed in the number of points that we gave up. I think 38 is a lot to give up to a pedestrian Vanderbilt team. And I really don't like seeing all the zone that we're playing. I personally don't feel like if you're going to get the type of athletes that we get at LSU that play cornerback and supposedly play defensive end and linebacker, we should be manning up. We're better than you. Prove that you can play with us. And we play a lot of zone. As far as Fulton's concerned, I'm underwhelmed with his ball skills. I feel like at his age and and experience, he shouldn't be so fish out of water when the ball is up in the air. It seems like he gets, especially after he gets called for a couple penalty, and it's inevitable he's gonna get called for a penalty or two every game. But once he gets one or two, he's like a fish out of water, and it's like he's scared, and it's like, man, your ball skills got to be better than that. I could kind of understand the freshman. You know, his technique isn't right quite where it needs to be. It's not, but you're essentially a fifth-year senior, man. You can't be looking like that, man. You shouldn't be looking like that. But even with all that, we still, I guess you could take that with a grain of salt, only because when it's all said and done, that there's an opportunity for them to get better. They're still undefeated. Everything they won is still in front of them. They're undefeated in conference play, 7 more games. And the next conference game is a big one against Florida, and I look forward to it, man. I look forward to beating the crap out of them because we owe them. With that said, week 5 next week. Week 5 is going to be exciting. If I'm not mistaken, there's only 2 games. So 2 games next week with ranked opponents, and they are Virginia, Notre Dame, and USC, Washington. That's the 2 big games of the weekend. Both 3 o'clock starts. Arizona State, California is on a Friday night matchup. That's a pretty good game. Again, I feel like Arizona is still the team to beat in the South until otherwise. It's a home game for California, but I believe in the fighting Herm Edwards, as they call him, and I look forward to them taking that game. Definitely I'll be watching that game, and hopefully I can do a live stream. Virginia, Notre Dame. I just think Notre Dame is a better team. Notre Dame is a pretty good team. I think they're a legit top 15 team. And I think nothing's wrong with that. But they're a legit top 15 team, potentially 10. But they're a good team. They just don't have. They're a better team than the sum of their parts. I put it like that. Like the sum of their parts is better than the individual parts of them. And then the last, USC, Washington. I think Washington's going to take that one. I think the loss to California has put a bug in their back, and I feel like they're going to take that one. Besides that, it's a pretty lackluster week next week. Auburn has Mississippi State. I can see Mississippi State actually taking that one, particularly after last week's performance. Kansas State plays Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is a very solid program. I think Kansas State is just kind of on a little run right now. And I feel like Oklahoma State is going to take that one. With that said, I look forward to trying to put together a weekend for week number 3 NFL and a quick look in on week 5. Probably look into about 4 or 5 games. More than likely, it's going to be the Notre Dame and the SC game, as well as the Friday night special of Cal and Arizona State. And I'll drop a few dimes on my Saints and what's going on in the league. With that said, feel free again. Reach out to me directly on IG and Twitter at I am Ivy Joe. Anything to do with Fresh Off the Porch, reach out to Joe Cool Media on IG and Twitter. Email me at ivyjoedavisjr JoeCoolEnterprises.com. And just like that, we're done. Try to do better next time. From all of us here at JKM Studios, located in sunny, beautiful West Palm Beach, Florida, talk to you next week.
Hey, I know you don't smoke weed. I know this. But I'm gonna get you high today. Cause it's Friday.
Yes.
You ain't got no job.
Yes.
And you ain't got shit to do.